So it's a hot day, huh? It's June. So it's good to see all of you online, wherever you are. I see people in Florida, in different places, upstate, in Vermont. Good to see you. And here, we're fortunate to have some feedback, some air conditioning for our June day. And there's so many different ways we could spend today. Or maybe you're watching this a year from now on a video. I hope you still stop and consider what your Zen practice offers you. And what it offers you today, in this moment. What is it? What's this about? We come here and we sit, we go online and we sit. Why do we do that? Why do we practice sitting in zazen? Listening to talks, chanting. For me, I think it's to reset myself, to remember myself, to show up, to appreciate our time in the world. As many of you know, last Sunday, our Zen community here celebrated the change in leadership with Enkyo Roshi stepping up to lead us as the abbot, and with me stepping down to simply serve as part of the Sangha. Of course, I'll still give talks because there are various students, and quite a few of us give talks, as you may be aware. Once a student has become a shuso, has studied for several years and passed a certain number of koans, go through certain rites of passage, then they give talks. It's just an institutional thing. And the reason I'm stepping down is because I think that every organization, every institution needs fresh energy, new ideas. And Enkyo Roshi and our executive committee will provide that. I'll stick around and say what I have to say, but with a little less emphasis, maybe. And so what do I do with myself, you know? I mean, when I was at the university, when I retired, that was like, okay, bye, somebody else is gonna have your office. But here, we don't do it that way. I'll just keep on practicing with you. I'll just keep coming and sitting with you, because why? It's the way that I understand life. It's the way I understand how to be in my life, regardless of how I grew up and the conditions in my life. Somehow I came to this practice. And it is such a helpful way, the Zen tradition, to help us when we meet changes in our lives. So important. The changes I'm facing are mainly cognitive shifts, you know, as in, now, what did I just do with that? Where did I put that thing? Or did I say that? Or did I do that already? And it can be very disconcerting if you're a smart ass, you know. So forgetting the forgetting is a unique challenge to a Zen practitioner. How to practice this time of my life. So I've turned, as I tend to do, to a favorite Zen text for support. And that's Dogen Zenji's Genjokoan. If If you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to download it from our website and read it. It is a profound text written in the 13th century in Japan, and it is one of the core texts of the Soto Zen tradition. It's just beautiful. And it's currently being translated by most of the translators as the koan of everyday life. The koan, the question of everyday life. I personally think of it as the koan of showing up. Showing up to every aspect of our lives. Showing up to our own hearts and minds. Being true to yourself. Showing up in your personal relationships, in your Zen practice, and as an integral part of everything that is. And all that is these days is a lot. Severe threat to our national political system. Severe threat. Can't emphasize that enough. I was a political science major as an undergraduate and studied various corruptions of Republican or Democratic ideas. And also going along with that is a huge threat to climate and ecology. We know that. And then there's the devastating wars that are going on in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Difficult times we're living in. So what I wanted to share today was just some notions that I received from the Genjokoan, from Dogen's piece that he wrote in 1242, of how to manage difficult times, because Lord knows when he was living, it was very tough. When I first began practice, like probably most of you here, the whole intention was to free myself, to calm myself. I heard about Zen was a way to get rid of your anxieties, your annoyances. So I took the bait. But what I learned and what I've seen in myself and others is that Zen does much more than that, much more than calm our fears and anxieties. It gives us courage to serve everyone. It gives us courage to serve all sentient beings. No matter how modest our own personal aspirations may be. Dogen wrote about this in a poem. He wrote, "What can I accomplish? Although not yet a Buddha, let my priest body be the raft to carry sentient beings to the yonder shore." What can I accomplish? You know, we can think of that ourselves. What can I accomplish? Although not yet a Buddha, so not yet enlightened, let my priest body, let my simple body be the raft to carry sentient beings to the yonder shore. You know, it is such a humble, poignant request, you know? To let one's own body, which is what we have, to let what we have, our own being, serve to awaken others. What a beautiful thing that is. To awaken them to the reality of this interpenetrated universe, where nothing is really separate. Nothing exists without all the rest. So, if we wish to save ourselves, by default, we begin saving others. Let me say that again. If we wish to save ourselves, by default, as we are not separate, we save others. So I was inspired by Dogen's verse and wrote another one in response. I thought I was strong enough to swim across by myself. Yet somehow it was easier to row the boat with all of us inside, outside, across the flowing waters. I thought I was strong enough to swim across by myself. Yet somehow it was easier to row the boat with all of us inside, outside, across the flowing waters. So those two thought poems across 2 continents in 850 years both evoke what each of us can reveal to ourselves as we walk on the Buddha way, as we're all walking on the Buddha way. This is what Dogen outlines in his poem, Genjokoan. Here are the most famous lines of the Genjokoan. To study the way of enlightenment is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad beings. When actualized by myriad beings, your body and mind, as well as the bodies and minds of others, drops away. To study the way of enlightenment, which is what we're all doing here, is to study the self. And to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. When actualized by myriad things, your body and mind, as well as the bodies and minds of others, drop away. So these fixations we have, this is me, this is mine, this is you, this is that. You are separate from me, or I am separate from you. That drops away. And what there is, a continuous stream of reality flowing around us at every moment, without all these delineations, with all of these separations. We get that we begin with the self. But what does he mean when he says we're actualized by myriad things? Isn't it like when we step out the door and we're on cobblestones and there's all this film activity across the street, a truck is going by? We're part of all of that. It's not separate. And very often, we pull back. I don't like this. I reject that. We're not integrated into the reality of what is, experiencing and being a part of the dynamic reality that is around all of us. We cannot separate ourselves. There's no separate me from all that we encounter, all that we live with and through. And because of that realization, our practice deepens. We begin to realize, and I bring it up again, our responsibility to all that is, our responsibility to serve all creations. It's not so easy, of course. On the one hand, people can become overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, of the needs, by sheer horror of the suffering we witness. Or we may not know how we can serve. There's a portion, I live right next to Washington Square Park. So, grocery shopping, everything, I go through the park. And so there's a portion of the park that, one doesn't really want to go through. It's the druggie aisle and the suffering aisle, and it's hard. It's hard to go there, and I see myself avoiding it often. I just can't, I'm just not up for it. I can go around to the next path. And yet, to ignore the suffering that's there, limits me and limits my awareness of life itself. I'm called to bear witness, because bearing witness, we just, as ordinary beings, we began to want to do something about it. Maybe nothing in that moment at that place, but some kind of way to be of service in such a situation. We learn to serve. If we're really unskillful at that moment, we fail. Maybe through our fear, or maybe we just dissipate our energy by trying to do a little here or do a little there, and without kind of having a perspective on how to be of service. Or even worse, we can fall into our own greed and anger, resentment, pessimism. How is the question? Do we find the appropriate means that will in fact help to ferry folks across the sea of suffering? How do we do that? One strategy that helps me is to remember these lines from the Genjokoan, which reminds us of the impermanence of everything. She who wants to serve as well as that which needs serving. Dogen writes, when you ride in a boat and watch the shore, you might assume that the shore is moving. We've all experienced that, huh? But when you keep your eyes closely on the boat, you can see that the boat moves. Similarly, if you examine myriad things with a confused body and mind, you might suppose that your mind and essence are permanent. When you practice intimately and return to where you are, it will be clear that nothing at all has unchanging self. That last line, when you practice intimately and return to where you are, it will be clear that nothing at all has unchanging self. Of course, we know that the idea of impermanence is crucial to living a life. But what we often fail to see is that in the process of our activities, we ourselves, the very one who got up this morning and intended to do such and such, that person is constantly changing. Not the same person that got up this morning and decided to do such and such. We have to begin to offer our changes as we practice. That's why zazen helps us so much. It offers a way of being that embraces change, embraces the reality of life. And thus we change and offer changes to others. So that's kind of what happened to me in my life of practice. Wanting to practice with others led to a new way of life, a new position. And now I'm aging out of that leadership. And I'm finding the way Dharma takes me along another path of wisdom and compassion, as it does for us all if we watch, if we look, if we observe, if we feel. If you look at the current political situation, when we rage against fake news, we may need to stop and notice our own ways of enjoying bathing in the news that suits us. how through our use of many media possibilities, we have become a tuning fork for what we want to hear, for what fits our worldview. It's so vital, no matter how old or young you are, to remind ourselves over and over again that we too are changing in each moment. And our Zen practice can help us steer our boat through these troubled waters this time. Dogen follows this segment of the ship and the shore with his most profound teaching on life and death. It's called the firewood and ash section. Firewood becomes ash, and it does not become firewood again. Yet do not suppose that the ash is after and the firewood before. Understand that firewood abides in its condition as firewood, which fully includes before and after, while it is independent of before and after. Ash abides in its condition as ash, which fully includes before and after. Just as firewood does not become firewood again after it is ash, you do not return to birth after death. Well, I couldn't be more clear than that. Well, there's a lot of fantasies about rebirth and so forth. And Dogen says it as he understands it. Just as firewood does not become firewood again after it is ash, you do not return to birth after death. So, besides firmly throwing away the whole rebirth problem in that last sentence, it seems that what Dogen is really offering is a profound teaching. What is called nowadays being in the moment. Dogen is reminding us that in each moment of our lives, we can be free of the old conceptual framework that a fixed point in the past or a fixed point in the future. Being present now, as you listen. Our wonderfully powerful human brains, want structure, patterns, formulas, cause and effect. But Dogen is reminding us that in each moment, there is a world of just this, a world of possibility, not constrained by our ideas of what should be. And that is called Juhoi, Dharma position, or suchness. It's like those old animation deck of cards, right? If you flip through them rapidly, they appear to display movement. But actually, when you look closely, each card is still and only slightly different from the one before and the one after. Each one, wholly and completely, is its Dharma position, its Juhoi. In this very moment, our Juhoi. Moment to moment to moment. What's the teaching? That each action we take in each moment of our lives is wholly and completely present to creative change. We are ready. The idea of persistence, of continuity, is what we create in our thoughts and memories. Each thing is just what it is. I am what I am. I'm no longer the child riding a horse in Tijuana. Or am I the 60s? You don't want to know about it. Or the young mother, the professor, the Zen abbess. I'm just me now, old Zen woman, sitting here now with you. Traces remain, memories, wounds, and blessings. But it's a realization of the undivided nature of our Dharma position that offers us a truly great freedom and creativity, possibility in each moment. Now, each one of us here in this room and online has the possibility. We can serve. We can serve. Without depending on some persistent idea of outcome, but simply as a manifestation of this moment, you. It is, as Dogen says, when we look carefully at the shore, we recognize that we too are moving. And that moving, we are in our own juhoi, our own Dharma position. And from there, we can be of use. We can serve. So let me end with a gatha. Like a little fish in water, we have just a fleeting moment to serve, to help, to row that boat. Let's do it.